You wake up tomorrow morning, let's say it is 7:12, and before your feet touch the floor, your hand has already found the phone. You tell yourself it is just 1 minute. The weather, one message, one headline, one short video, and then somehow your brain is awake in the wrong direction. The room is dim, the curtains are closed, the ceiling light is weak, and outside the real morning has already been running for almost an hour. Before coffee, before breakfast, before you make any conscious plan, your brain is already asking a very old biological question. What time is it in the outside world? That question sounds simple, but it is one of the central questions your body answers every single day, with hormones, temperature, hunger, focus, and sleep. Inside your brain, buried in the hypothalamus, there's a tiny clock-like structure called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, usually shortened to the SCN. The SCN is not a motivational metaphor, it is a real cluster of neurons that helps coordinate the timing of your entire body. It helps decide when you feel alert, when body temperature rises, when digestion becomes more active, when cortisol peaks, and when melatonin should begin rising again at night. And here's the part most people miss. This master clock does not primarily read time from your phone, your watch, or your morning calendar. It reads light, and it reads the timing of light, which means your first hour after waking is not just a mood, it is a signal. Now I want to be honest from the beginning, because this topic has been turned into a very cheap internet story. This is not a video where I tell you blue light is evil, sell you orange glasses, and pretend one phone setting fixes human biology. That version is too small, too dramatic, and honestly less interesting than what is actually happening inside your brain. The real problem is not simply that screens exist. The real problem is that modern life gives your brain day signals at night and weak morning signals during the day. We made mornings too dark, evenings too bright, bedrooms too stimulating, and then we started calling ourselves bad sleepers. But sleep is not a switch you flip at 11 p.m. Sleep is the result of timing signals that have been accumulating since you woke up. So the question of this video is not, how do I force myself to sleep tonight? The deeper question is, how did I teach my brain when night begins? Morning sunlight matters because it gives your brain a timestamp, a clean declaration that the day has started. Late night screens matter because they can blur the other edge of the day, the part where the brain should be allowed to understand that night is here. If you understand those two edges, morning and night, the whole sleep problem becomes less mysterious and much more practical. Let's build it from the ground up, because the first thing you need to understand is that your eyes do more than see. Most people think the eye is only a camera. Shapes, color, faces, text, cars, doors, danger, beauty, whatever enters conscious vision. But your eyes also contain a quieter timing system, one that does not care much about making pictures for your conscious mind. These cells are called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, which is an almost aggressively inconvenient name, so researchers often call them IPRGCs. Think of IPRGCs as light meters for your body clock. They measure brightness and timing, then report that information to the SCN. They contain a pigment called melanopsin, which is especially responsive to blue-rich short-wavelength light, but please do not reduce the story to blue equals bad. The biology is not just color, it is intensity, duration, timing, angle, context, and whether the rest of the day gave your brain a strong contrast. The pathway is beautifully direct, retina to hypothalamus, eye to clock, light to time. When outdoor morning light reaches these cells, it tells the SCN, this is morning, this is the beginning of the active phase. When bright light reaches them late at night, especially close to bedtime, it can tell the SCN something very different. The day is not finished yet. This is why timing matters more than moral panic, because the same kind of signal can mean opposite things depending on when it arrives. Morning light can help anchor the clock earlier. Late evening light can push the clock later, especially when it is bright, close, and repeated night after night. Controlled studies have shown that using light-emitting devices before sleep can delay circadian timing, suppress melatonin, increase alertness, and reduce next morning alertness. But even that is not only about the screen being blue. A phone in bed is light plus novelty plus emotion, plus social pressure, plus unfinished thoughts. A phone in bed is not just a lamp. It is a lamp attached to a tiny casino attached to every unresolved conversation in your life. Your brain is trying to enter night, and the screen keeps handing it small pieces of day. Now bring that back to the morning, because this is where the solution becomes elegant instead of dramatic. If night light can blur the ending of the day, morning light can sharpen the beginning of the day. Morning sunlight is not magic, not a spiritual upgrade, not a personality type. It is a biological timestamp delivered through the eyes. When that timestamp arrives soon after waking, it helps the SCN organize the next 24 hours. It supports the normal morning rise and alertness, helps define the daytime window, and helps set the timing for when melatonin should rise later. The key word is contrast. Your clock needs a clear difference between day and night. For most of human history, day was extremely bright, and night was genuinely dark, or at least very dim. Outdoor daylight is often many times brighter than indoor lighting, even when the sky is cloudy and the day looks unimpressive. Fire existed, yes, but fire is not the same as a glowing rectangle 12 inches from your face while your mind is emotionally hooked. Modern life flattened the contrast. Dim room in the morning, indoor office all day, bright kitchen at night, phone in bed, then surprise when sleep comes late. You are not broken. Your clock is being given confusing evidence. Let me draw the mechanism on the board. On the left, a person under a blanket staring at a phone at 12:18 a.m. The light hits the retina. The melanopsin system detects it. The SCN receives a late-day signal, and the brain hesitates to lower alertness. That does not mean one glance at your phone destroys sleep. Biology is not that fragile. It means that a repeated pattern of bright, stimulating late light can teach the clock that your evening is later than the real world. On the right side of the board, the same person wakes up and steps outside into morning light. The light is broader, brighter, and biologically louder than the apartment, and the SCN receives a cleaner signal. This is daytime. Over days, that morning signal can help anchor the clock, making the evening decline in alertness easier to find. This is why morning sunlight is not really a sleep hack. It is a timing correction. There are two sleep systems you need to separate in your mind, because confusing them is why so many people misunderstand insomnia. The first system is sleep pressure, the pressure that builds the longer you stay awake. The second system is circadian timing, the internal rhythm that tells your body whether this is a good time to be asleep. You can have high sleep pressure and bad circadian timing at the same time, and that is the wired-tired state. Your body feels heavy, your eyes burn, your patience is gone, but your mind is still weirdly active, jumping from idea to idea. That is not a moral failure. It is often a conflict between pressure and timing. Sleep pressure says, "We have been awake too long." The circadian clock says, "I am not convinced it is night yet." Late-night screens can strengthen that conflict, while morning light can help resolve it by making the daily rhythm more distinct. Now, before I give you the protocol, I want to remove the fantasy version of this advice. You do not need a perfect sunrise, a mountain view, bare feet in wet grass, a linen shirt, and an expensive journal. Your circadian system does not require an aesthetic, it requires a signal. You need outdoor light reaching your eyes safely and consistently, preferably soon after waking. Not staring at the sun, because that is dangerous and unnecessary. Never stare directly at the sun, not through a closed window if you can avoid it, because glass and indoor positioning reduce the signal dramatically. Not 3 hours after waking, after your brain has already spent the morning in a dim room under artificial light. The simplest target is this. Go outside within the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking. If the sun is bright, 5 to 10 minutes can be enough for many people. If it is cloudy, 10 to 20 minutes is a more realistic starting point. If you live in winter darkness, use the first available outdoor daylight and consider a properly bright light box if your clinician says it is appropriate. If you wear glasses, that is usually fine. If you wear dark sunglasses, you're reducing the signal, so save them for when you truly need them. The point is not to burn your eyes with brightness. The point is to give your clock a clear morning vote. And do not turn this into another complicated self-improvement prison. You can get the signal while walking to the mailbox, standing on a balcony, waiting outside with coffee, or taking a slow loop around the block. The body does not care whether the morning looks cinematic. It cares whether the retina receives enough correctly timed light. Now let's talk about why this one habit feels surprisingly powerful when it is repeated. The SCN is the master clock, but it is not the only clock. Almost every tissue in your body has its own timing machinery. Your liver, muscles, pancreas, gut, immune cells, and even fat cells follow daily rhythms that are coordinated by light, food, activity, and temperature. Morning light is one of the signals that helps the master clock coordinate those peripheral clocks. This is why people often report that consistent morning light improves not only sleep timing, but also morning energy, appetite timing, and mental clarity. We should be careful with claims because sunlight is not a cure-all, and sleep problems can have medical causes. But the mechanism makes sense. When the central clock receives a stable day start signal, the rest of the system has a better chance to align. Imagine an orchestra where every musician is competent, but nobody knows when the conductor raised the baton. Morning light is one of the clearest ways the conductor says, "Begin here." Evening darkness is the other half of the instruction. Lower the volume now. Most people try to fix the night while ignoring the morning. And that is like trying to fix a calendar by editing only the last page. If your first strong light of the day is a laptop at 9:30 and your last strong light is a phone at 100, your clock is learning a strange schedule. The body adapts to the signals it receives, not the schedule you wish you had. This is also why sleeping in late on weekends can feel so good in the moment and so punishing on Monday. When your wake time shifts by 2 or 3 hours, your light exposure shifts too, and the clock receives a different morning timestamp. Then Sunday night arrives. You want to sleep early, but your clock still thinks the day started late. People call this laziness, lack of discipline, or Sunday anxiety. But sometimes it is simply timing math. If you want stable sleep, protect the edges. Consistent wake time, strong morning light, dimmer evening, and fewer late-night stimulation loops. Now let's address the biggest objection. What if I cannot quit screens at night? Good, because this is not a purity contest, and I do not want you building a life that collapses the first time you answer a message after dark. The practical question is not, can you become a monk? The question is, can you reduce the strongest wrong signals at the most sensitive time? Start by moving the phone farther from your face and lowering brightness more than you think. Use warm color settings if they help, but do not treat them as permission to scroll for 2 more hours in bed. Dim the room lights during the last hour, because the room around the phone matters too. Most importantly, remove the emotional hook. No arguments, no news spirals, no work messages, no short video slot machine in bed. If you need to use a screen, make it boring, dim, predictable, and preferably not in the bed. The bed should become a place where the brain expects darkness and repetition, not surprise and reward. That one change matters because the circadian system is not working alone. Your nervous system is learning associations. If the bed means scrolling, arguing, planning, checking, and rewarding novelty, your brain will not treat the pillow like an off switch. It will treat it like the entrance to a second day. Now compare that with a 7-day experiment. Same wake time, outside light within an hour. Bright daytime, dim last hour, phone out of bed. For the first 2 nights, you may not feel much because clocks shift through repetition, not instant obedience. By nights 3 and 4, many people notice the evening begins to feel less like a fight. By the end of a week, the morning often feels less foggy because the timing of the system has become less ambiguous. Again, this is not a guarantee for every sleep disorder. Snoring, sleep apnea, restless legs, medications, depression, anxiety, and pain deserve real medical attention. But for the ordinary modern problem of drifting later and waking dull, light timing is one of the cleanest levers we have. Let me make the protocol painfully simple, because complicated protocols are where good biology goes to die. Step 1. Wake at roughly the same time every day, at least within a 1-hour range when your life allows it. Step 2. Get outside light within 30 to 60 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes in bright sun, 10 to 20 in clouds. Step 3. Do not stare at the sun. Look toward the open sky, the horizon, buildings, trees, anything safely bright. Step 4. Make the middle of your day bright when possible. Windows open, walks outside, lunch outdoors, not a cave from morning to evening. Step 5. In the last hour before bed, dim the environment before you try to dim your mind. Step 6. Keep the phone out of bed, or at least make the bed the place where the phone becomes boring and short. That is the whole protocol. Bright early, bright enough during the day, dim late, boring in bed, repeated for 7 days. Notice what is not in the protocol. No supplement stack, no complicated device, no heroic personality change, no perfect morning routine. The elegance is that your body already knows what to do with light. You are simply giving it a less confusing map. Now I want to talk about coffee, because people always ask whether coffee ruins this whole system. Coffee is not the villain of this video, and I'm not interested in turning breakfast into a moral courtroom. The bigger issue is that many people use caffeine to compensate for a clock that never received a clean morning signal. They wake in a dim room, stare at a phone, drink coffee immediately, stay indoors, crash in the afternoon, then scroll late because they are not sleepy. The next morning feels worse, so they repeat the same pattern with more caffeine and more resentment toward their own body. Morning light does not replace coffee for everyone, but it can reduce the feeling that caffeine is the only thing starting the day. If you still drink coffee, drink it because you enjoy it, not because your brain never got told morning arrived. There's another subtle point. Morning light is not only about sleep later, it is also about feeling present now. When you go outside early, you force the brain to receive a real-world signal instead of beginning the day inside abstraction. The sky has no notifications, no algorithm, no comment section, no urgent red number demanding interpretation. It is just light, temperature, distance, and time, which is exactly the kind of boring truth your nervous system understands. This is why the habit can feel grounding even before the sleep benefits become obvious. You're giving the brain the oldest possible orientation cue. Here is the world. Here is morning. Begin. Now let's be precise about what late-night screens break, because the word break can sound too absolute. They do not break you like glass, they bend the timing, especially when they arrive repeatedly at the same vulnerable hour. They can delay the clock, reduce melatonin signaling, increase cognitive arousal, and train the bed to feel like a place for engagement. Morning sunlight fixes this not by erasing the screen, but by restoring the opposite edge of the rhythm. It says this is the beginning, and once the beginning becomes stable, the ending becomes easier to locate. The clock loves anchors. Morning light is an anchor. The clock hates ambiguity. Dim mornings and bright nights create ambiguity. If your sleep feels random, the first question is not only what happened at bedtime, it is what evidence your brain received all day. Did it receive a strong morning, or did it wake into a cave with a phone? Did it receive real daytime brightness, or did it spend 10 hours under weak indoor light? Did it receive evening darkness, or did the day continue in miniature on a glowing screen? Your body is not judging you. It is calculating from the signals available. And if the calculation is wrong, the answer is not shame, it is better data. So tomorrow, do not begin with a grand promise to become a different person. Begin with one mechanical act. After waking, put the phone down, open the door, and step into outdoor light. Stand there for a few minutes, like a scientist running the simplest experiment in the world. No drama, no performance, no need to feel inspired. Just let light reach your eyes safely, and let your clock receive the message. Then do it again the next day, and the next, until the signal becomes boring. Boring is good. Clocks are built from boring repetition. The most powerful biological habits often feel almost disappointing because they are not cinematic. Water, movement, darkness, daylight, regular meals, regular waking. The body likes simple evidence repeated often. If you miss a day, nothing collapses. If you miss a week, restart without turning it into a story about failure. The clock is forgiving, but it is also literal. It does not care what you intended last night. It cares what you showed it this morning and what you keep showing it. There is a quiet freedom in that, because it means you do not have to argue with yourself as much. You can stop trying to force sleep at night and start arranging the signals that make sleep more likely. You can stop treating your tiredness like a character defect and start treating it like a timing problem. And timing problems are beautiful, because they can be measured, repeated, adjusted, and improved. So here's the final image I want you to keep in your head. On one side of the board there is a tiny phone glowing in a dark room, telling the brain, maybe it is still day. On the other side, there is morning sunlight entering the eye, traveling to the SEN, telling the body, no, the day begins here. Between those two signals is your sleep, your energy, your focus, and the daily rhythm you keep asking your body to find. Your body is not broken, it is listening. For years, modern life has been whispering confusing instructions at the wrong times. Morning sunlight is one of the cleanest ways to speak clearly again. Not because the sun is magic, but because your biology is old, precise, and still paying attention. And before we close, I want to give you one more way to think about this, because it protects you from turning the protocol into superstition. Morning sunlight is not a command that forces sleep to happen. It is evidence that helps your brain predict when sleep should happen later. The brain is constantly predicting the body, when food will arrive, when movement will begin, when danger is likely, when recovery is safe. Light is one of the strongest pieces of prediction data your nervous system receives, because for most of evolution it was tied to the real planet. When the sun came up, the world became navigable, food became visible, work began, temperature rose, and the social day started. When the sun disappeared, the world became darker, colder, less safe for movement, and the body had a reason to conserve energy. Modern lighting detached those predictions from the sky, which is useful for civilization but confusing for biology. You can work at midnight, order food at midnight, argue with strangers at midnight, watch daylight-colored videos at midnight, and your clock tries to make sense of it. The clock does not know you are only relaxing. It only knows the evidence says light, novelty, faces, language, and emotional consequence. That is why the solution is not hatred of technology. The solution is to put technology back inside boundaries your biology can understand. Use the phone in the evening if you must, but stop letting it be the last weather report your brain receives about the world. Let the last hour become smaller. Fewer lights, fewer decisions, fewer emotional spikes, fewer things that ask the brain to prepare a response. And let the first hour become bigger. Real sky, real distance, real brightness, real air, something beyond the rectangle. This is the swap at night. Less false day, in the morning, more real day. If you want to test it, do not judge it after one morning, because clocks are not impressed by isolated gestures. Judge it after 7 mornings, and if possible after 14, because repeated light at the same time is what turns a signal into a rhythm. Write down only 3 things: when you woke, when you went outside, and when sleepiness naturally arrived in the evening. Do not turn it into a 20-variable spreadsheet. Keep the experiment so simple that you will actually finish it. If you discover that your natural sleepiness starts moving earlier, that is not motivation. That is your clock learning the edge of the day again. If nothing changes, that is useful too, because it tells you to look for other causes: breathing, stress, pain, medication, alcohol, noise, or medical sleep disorders. Good science does not mean pretending one habit explains everything. Good science means using one clean lever and watching what actually moves. But for many people, the lever does move, because the problem was never a lack of willpower. The problem was a day with no clear beginning, a night with no clear ending, and a brain asked to sleep inside that confusion. Give the day a beginning, give the night an ending, and your body often stops fighting you quite so hard. That is the real promise here. Not perfect sleep forever, but a clearer conversation with the clock that has been trying to help you all along. And there's one last reason this matters for a channel like ours, because biohacking often becomes a hunt for exotic tools while the obvious signals are ignored. People will spend weeks comparing supplements, devices, apps, powders, and trackers, while their brain starts every morning in darkness and ends every night under artificial noon. That is not optimization. That is decorating a confused system with expensive accessories before giving it the basic environmental information it was designed to use. The more scientific approach is humbler. Identify the strongest input, change it consistently, then observe whether the output changes. In this case, the input is light timing, the output is sleep timing, and the experiment is simple enough that almost anyone can run it. No one needs to believe in sunlight as a personality, a trend, or a lifestyle. The only question is whether the clock responds to a cleaner signal. If it responds, you keep the habit because the result earned your attention, not because someone online told you to worship the morning. If it does not respond, you learn something useful, and you move to the next layer with more honesty than before. That is what real biohacking should feel like. Not frantic control over the body, but a patient conversation with the mechanisms already there. And few mechanisms are more ancient, more measurable, and more neglected than the daily argument between light, darkness, and the human clock. Tomorrow morning, before the phone teaches your brain another version of time, step outside and give your clock the real one.